The morning of July 15, 2005, started like any other for Marcus Patterson, head groundskeeper at Riverside Zoo in Minneapolis. 23 years of maintaining these grounds had taught him every inch. Marcus was installing new irrigation lines near the old elephant enclosure, demolished in 1998 when the zoo modernized. His shovel struck something that wasn't dirt or rock. He knelt down, brushing away soil with his weathered hands. The first bone emerged pale white against the dark earth, then another. Marcus had found enough dead animals in his years to know the difference. These weren't animal bones. He immediately called his supervisor, Janet Reeves. "You need to get down here right now and call the police." Within an hour, the area was cordoned off. Detective Sarah Martinez arrived with the crime scene unit. She had worked missing persons for 8 years and recognized the significance immediately when Marcus explained the location. "This is exactly where the Brennan girl disappeared," Marcus said, pointing to the nearby pathway. July 1994. Emily Brennan, age 7. Family was visiting. She wandered off during feeding time. Never found her. Detective Martinez pulled the case file from her car. Emily Catherine Brennan, born March 12, 1987. Disappeared July 22, 1994, during a family visit to Riverside Zoo. Last seen at 2:30 p.m. near the elephant enclosure. Massive search involving police, FBI, volunteers. No trace ever found. The Brennan family had never stopped searching. Emily's father, Robert Brennan, still called the police department monthly. Her mother, Linda, had started a foundation for missing children. They lived 40 minutes away in Bloomington. Their entire lives centered around finding their daughter. The original investigation concluded she left the zoo. Detective Martinez read aloud. Possible abduction from parking lot. No evidence of foul play within zoo grounds. Dr. Amanda Torres, the medical examiner, carefully excavated the remains. Preliminary examination suggests juvenile female, approximately 6 to 8 years old. I'll need laboratory confirmation, but the size and development are consistent with your missing girl. Marcus watched the careful excavation process. "I've worked this entire area dozens of times over 11 years. These bones were buried deep, at least 4 feet down. Someone knew exactly what they were doing." Detective Martinez called Robert Brennan. "Mr. Brennan, this is Detective Martinez with Minneapolis PD. We may have found Emily. I need you and your wife to come to the station." The dental records comparison would take 24 hours, but Detective Martinez already knew. The location, the age estimates, the timing, everything pointed to Emily Brennan. That evening, she reviewed every detail of the 1994 investigation. Lead investigator had been Detective William Hayes, now retired. The case had been reassigned multiple times over 11 years. Evidence boxes filled 3 storage containers. The original theory never made sense to Martinez. A 7-year-old doesn't simply vanish from a crowded zoo in broad daylight without someone seeing something. The elephant enclosure had been staffed that day. Visitors everywhere, yet no witnesses. She pulled the employment records from 1994. 43 employees worked at the zoo that summer. Most still lived in the Twin Cities area. Many still worked at Riverside Zoo. One name stood out: Dr. Jonathan Whitmore, senior veterinarian since 1989. Still employed. Impeccable reputation. He'd been interviewed briefly in 1994 but provided no useful information. Martinez made notes in her case file. Tomorrow she would begin re-interviewing everyone who worked at the zoo on July 27, 1994. Someone had answers. The excavation site revealed more than bones. A small pink backpack, deteriorated but intact. Inside, a wallet with Emily's school ID. A Mickey Mouse watch stopped at 3:47 p.m. These items had never been reported found. Marcus Patterson couldn't stop thinking about the depth of the burial. "Detective, I've buried plenty of animals over the years. That hole took planning, tools, time, and knowledge of the grounds to avoid detection." Detective Martinez agreed. This wasn't random violence. Someone with access, knowledge, and opportunity had killed Emily Brennan and hidden her body in the one place no one would think to look, right where she disappeared. The investigation was just beginning, But Martinez already suspected the answer lay not in some external predator, but within the walls of Riverside Zoo itself. Someone Emily trusted had betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. Reopening old wounds. Detective Martinez arrived at the Brennan home in Bloomington at 8 a.m. sharp. Linda Brennan answered the door, her face showing the strain of 11 years of hoping and grieving simultaneously. "The dental records confirmed it," Martinez said gently. "We found Emily." Robert Brennan joined them in the living room. The walls displayed hundreds of missing person flyers, age progression photos, and newspaper clippings. Their lives had stopped on July 22, 1994. "Where?" Linda whispered. "Buried on zoo grounds, near where she disappeared." Robert's hand shook. "We asked them to search there. They said they did. They told us she left the property." Martinez opened her case file. "I need you to walk me through that day again. Every detail you remember." Linda retrieved her own file, meticulous records she'd kept for 11 years. "We arrived at 10 a.m. Emily was excited about the elephants. She'd been asking to see them for weeks. We stayed together until lunch," Robert added, "around 1 p.m. Then we went to the elephant feeding demonstration at 2:30. "Emily was right beside me," Linda continued. "The keeper was explaining elephant behavior. I looked away for maybe 30 seconds to read the information plaque. When I turned back, she was gone." Martinez reviewed the 1994 witness statements. The elephant keeper that day was Thomas Muller, employed since 1988, still worked at the zoo. His statement described a normal feeding demonstration with approximately 40 visitors present. "Did Emily interact with any zoo employees that day?" "Just normal stuff," Robert said. "The ticket person, maybe someone at the gift shop. She was shy with strangers." Martinez pulled out photos of current zoo employees. "Recognize anyone?" Linda studied each face carefully. "Him," she said, pointing to Dr. Whitmore's photo. "He was at the elephant area that day. I remember because Emily asked if he was a real doctor. This detail wasn't in the 1994 report." "Dr. Whitmore talked to Emily?" "Just briefly. She asked about his coat. You know, the white veterinary coat. He said he was an animal doctor." Martinez made careful notes. Dr. Whitmore's original statement claimed no interaction with the family. That afternoon, she visited Riverside Zoo to examine the excavation site. The old elephant enclosure had been demolished, but the outline remained visible. The burial site sat just behind where the main viewing area had been. Thomas Muller, now head elephant keeper, walked her through the 1994 layout. The old enclosure was much larger, viewing areas on 3 sides. That spot where you found her was behind our service area. Who had access to that area? Keepers, veterinary staff, maintenance, maybe 20 people total. Was it secured? Basic fence. Anyone who worked here could get back there if they wanted. Martinez interviewed Muller about July 22, 1994. His recollection matched his original statement. Normal demonstration. Crowd of visitors. No unusual incidents. "Did you notice Dr. Whitmore that day?" "Probably. He checked on our animals regularly, but I can't say specifically." That evening, Martinez met with Dr. Whitmore at his home in St. Paul. At 58, he maintained the same distinguished appearance from his 1994 photos. His house reflected success. Large colonial in an expensive neighborhood. "Detective, I'm happy to help however I can. That poor family has suffered so much." Martinez showed him Linda Brennan's statement about their interaction. "I honestly don't remember that specifically. I talked to hundreds of children over the years about being a veterinarian. If Mrs. Brennan says we spoke, I'm sure we did. Your original statement said you had no contact with the family." I answered what I remembered at the time. It was a traumatic day for everyone. Martinez pressed further. "Where were you between 2:30 and 4 p.m. that day?" "Making my afternoon rounds, I assume. I would have checked on several animals. The veterinary clinic keeps detailed logs. You could check those." "We will." Dr. Whitmore's demeanor remained calm, professional. But Martinez noticed his hands fidgeting with his coffee cup. "Doctor, did you know about the service area behind the old elephant enclosure?" "Of course. I accessed it regularly to examine the elephants." "Easy to access after hours?" The entire zoo was accessible to staff with keys. Why do you ask? Martinez didn't answer directly. She was forming a theory but needed evidence before making accusations. Back at the station, she pulled Dr. Whitmore's complete employment file. Exemplary record. No complaints. Respected by colleagues and superiors. Member of several veterinary organizations. Published research on elephant care. But one detail caught her attention. In 1995, 1 year after Emily's disappearance, Dr. Whitmore had taken a 6-month sabbatical. His stated reason: stress and burnout from the difficulties of the previous year. The timing troubled Martinez. Most people don't take extended leave immediately after a traumatic incident unless something deeper is wrong. She decided to dig deeper into Dr. Whitmore's background and timeline. Following the trail, Detective Martinez spent the next morning in the Minneapolis Public Library researching Dr. Jonathan Whitmore's background through newspaper archives and public records. The picture that emerged was of a man who seemed too perfect. Born in Chicago in 1947, graduated from University of Illinois Veterinary Program in 1971. Worked at Lincoln Park Zoo for 18 years before joining Riverside Zoo in 1989. Unmarried, no children. Clean criminal record. Spotless professional reputation. But Martinez had learned to be suspicious of spotless reputations. She drove to Dr. Whitmore's former workplace in Chicago. Dr. Patricia Chen, current veterinary director at Lincoln Park Zoo, had worked with Whitmore for 5 years before his departure. Jonathan was competent, professional, a bit distant with people but excellent with animals. Any issues during his time here? Dr. Chen hesitated. Nothing official. He just seemed more comfortable with animals than people. Some staff found him a little odd. Odd how? He would work alone whenever possible. Rarely socialized. There were a couple of incidents where parents complained he was inappropriate with their children. Martinez leaned forward. Inappropriate how? Nothing sexual. More like he didn't understand proper boundaries. He would touch children without permission, ask personal questions. The complaints were minor, but we talked to him about it. Any records of these complaints? This was 30 years ago. I doubt any paperwork survived. Martinez returned to Minneapolis and pulled every incident report from Riverside Zoo between 1989 and 1994. 3 complaints about Dr. Whitmore. All from parents who felt he was too friendly with their children. All dismissed as misunderstandings. One complaint, dated March 1994, just 4 months before Emily's disappearance, described Dr. Whitmore approaching a 6-year-old girl near the monkey exhibit. He asked detailed questions about where she lived and went to school. The parents intervened and reported the incident. That afternoon, Martinez visited Marcus Patterson at his home. The groundskeeper had been thinking about the burial site for 3 days. Detective, I keep going over this in my mind. Whoever buried Emily knew our maintenance schedule. That area got worked on regularly in the summers, but there was a 2-week period in August 1994 when we avoided it. Why? Dr. Whitmore told us he was conducting some kind of soil study for the new landscaping project. Said he needed the area undisturbed for 2 weeks. Martinez felt her pulse quicken. This was never mentioned in the original investigation. Nobody asked. It seemed routine at the time. When exactly in August? Marcus checked his old work logs. August 8th through 22nd, 1994. Right after Emily disappeared. The timeline was falling into place. Emily disappeared July 22nd. Dr. Whitmore ensures the burial area remains undisturbed from August 8 to 22. Plenty of time to properly conceal a body. That evening, Martinez called Linda Brennan with a question that had been bothering her. Mrs. Brennan, you said Emily was shy with strangers, but she talked to Dr. Whitmore that day. She was shy with most adults, but she loved animals so much. When someone was an animal doctor, she got excited. She asked if he knew about horses. She was obsessed with horses. What did he say? He said he knew all about animals and maybe someday she could work with animals too. He was very nice to her. Martinez made more notes. Dr. Whitmore had gained Emily's trust by appealing to her love of animals. Classic predator behavior. She called Thomas Muller, the elephant keeper, at home. Thomas, I need you to think carefully about July 22, 1994. Do you remember Dr. Whitmore talking to a little girl in a yellow dress during your demonstration? You know, now that you mention it, yes. He was crouched down talking to her while her parents watched the elephants. I thought it was nice. He was good with kids who wanted to learn about veterinary work. How long did they talk? Maybe 5 minutes. She seemed really interested in whatever he was telling her. Then what happened? I don't know. The demonstration ended. People dispersed. I was cleaning up and feeding the elephants. Martinez had enough circumstantial evidence to obtain a search warrant for Dr. Whitmore's home and veterinary office, but she needed more before making an arrest. She decided to interview other zoo employees who worked in 1994, focusing on anyone who might have observed Dr. Whitmore's behavior patterns with children. Janet Reeves, now zoo supervisor but a keeper in 1994, provided the most useful information. Dr. Whitmore volunteered for every event that involved children: educational programs, summer camps, school visits. He always said he wanted to inspire the next generation of veterinarians. Did that seem unusual? Not at the time. We thought it was admirable. But looking back, he was always finding reasons to be around kids. Martinez was building a profile of a man who used his position and reputation to gain access to potential victims. Emily Brennan might not have been his first victim, but she might have been the first one who didn't escape. The investigation was gaining momentum, but Martinez knew the most difficult part lay ahead, proving that Dr. Whitmore had murdered Emily Brennan and hidden her body for 11 years. The web unravels Detective Martinez obtained the search warrants on Friday morning. She decided to execute them simultaneously to prevent Dr. Whitmore from destroying evidence if he discovered the investigation. At 6 a.m., teams hit both Dr. Whitmore's house and his veterinary office at Riverside Zoo. Martinez led the house search while Detective James Rodriguez handled the office. Dr. Whitmore answered his door in pajamas, seemingly confused by the police presence. Dr. Whitmore, we have a warrant to search your premises in connection with the death of Emily Brennan. His face went pale. I don't understand. I told you everything I remember about that day. You can wait in the living room while we conduct our search. Martinez immediately noticed the house's unusual cleanliness. Everything perfectly organized. Not a speck of dust anywhere. The walls displayed dozens of photographs from his work at various zoos, but no personal photos, no family pictures. In his home office, she found meticulous records going back decades. Veterinary journals, animal care protocols, detailed logs of every animal he'd treated. But also something else. Hidden behind the veterinary files were folders containing newspaper clippings about missing children cases throughout the Midwest. Not just Emily Brennan. Dozens of cases spanning 20 years. Each folder contained the initial missing person reports, follow-up articles, and details about the investigation. Dr. Whitmore had been tracking missing children cases like a hobby. Martinez found Emily's folder. It contained every newspaper article about her disappearance, copies of the police reports he shouldn't have had access to, and photographs of the Brennan family that appeared to be taken without their knowledge. In his bedroom closet, behind winter coats, she discovered a box containing children's items: hair ribbons, small toys, pieces of jewelry, each item tagged with a date and location. One tag read, Emily B., July 22, 1994. Yellow hair ribbon. Martinez photographed everything before bagging the evidence. This wasn't just a murder case anymore. It was potentially a serial killer investigation. Meanwhile, Rodriguez was making discoveries at the zoo office. Dr. Whitmore's computer contained deleted files that the tech team could recover. Email correspondence with other zoo employees showed an unusual interest in children's activities and programs. Most disturbing were veterinary logs that didn't match the official zoo records. Dr. Whitmore had been filing false reports about his whereabouts and activities for years. On July 22, 1994, the official zoo log showed Dr. Whitmore examining elephants from 2 to 4 p.m. But his personal log, found in his desk, showed no elephant examination that day. The personal log simply said, Special Project, EB. Rodriguez also found a key that didn't match any current zoo locks. The maintenance supervisor, Frank Williams, identified it as belonging to the old storage shed behind the elephant enclosure. the shed that had been demolished in 1995. Martinez called Dr. Amanda Torres with an urgent request. "Amanda, I need you to re-examine Emily's remains. Look for any evidence that might connect to Dr. Whitmore specifically." "What kind of evidence? Medical procedures, tool marks, anything that might indicate veterinary knowledge or equipment?" That afternoon, Dr. Torres called back with disturbing findings. "Sarah, the bones show evidence of careful dismemberment using precise tools. The cuts are consistent with veterinary surgical instruments. Whoever did this had anatomical knowledge and access to professional-grade equipment." Martinez felt sick. The evidence was painting a picture of a monster who had used his professional skills to torture and kill a 7-year-old girl. She decided to confront Dr. Whitmore directly. At the police station, she placed the evidence on the interview table. The hair ribbon, the newspaper clippings, the false logs. "Dr. Whitmore, can you explain these items?" He stared at the evidence for a long time before speaking. "I've always been interested in missing persons cases. It's not a crime to collect newspaper clippings." "Mom, what about Emily Brennan's hair ribbon? How did you get that?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Martinez showed him the photograph of the tagged ribbon. "It's in your handwriting, Doctor." Dr. Whitmore's composed facade began cracking. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his coffee. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right. But, Dr. Whitmore, we're going to find out what happened to Emily. We're going to examine every missing child case in the areas where you've worked. How many other children did you hurt?" "I said I want a lawyer." Martinez ended the interview, but she had what she needed. The physical evidence, combined with the circumstantial evidence, was building an overwhelming case. That evening, she called Robert and Linda Brennan to update them on the investigation's progress. "We believe we've identified Emily's killer, Dr. Jonathan Whitmore, the zoo veterinarian." Linda Brennan was quiet for a moment. "The nice man who talked to her about animals?" "Yes. He used his position to gain children's trust." Robert's voice was filled with rage. "That bastard comforted us. He told us how sorry he was about Emily. He helped with the search efforts." Martinez understood their anger. Dr. Whitmore had not only murdered their daughter but had participated in the cover-up of his own crime, watching the family suffer while knowing exactly what had happened. The investigation was far from over, but Martinez was confident they had their killer. Now came the difficult task of proving it in court. The monster revealed Dr. Whitmore's lawyer, Richard Sterling, arrived at the police station Monday morning. Sterling was Minneapolis's top criminal defense attorney, expensive and effective. The fact that Dr. Whitmore could afford him raised questions about his finances. Detective Martinez met with prosecutor David Chen to review their evidence before the formal interview. "The physical evidence is strong," Chen said, reviewing the case file. "The hair ribbon, the newspaper clippings, the false logs. But we need more to prove he actually killed her. We're processing everything from his house and office. There has to be more." The lab results from Dr. Whitmore's home revealed disturbing details. The children's items in his closet contained DNA from at least 12 different individuals. Most were too degraded for identification, but 2 matches came back from the missing persons database. Jennifer Walsh, age 8, disappeared from Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago in 1987. Kevin Morrison, age 6, vanished from Como Park Zoo in St. Paul in 1992. Martinez felt her blood run cold. They weren't dealing with a single murder. Dr. Whitmore was a serial killer who had been hunting children in zoo environments for decades. She immediately contacted the Chicago Police Department and St. Paul authorities to coordinate the investigation of the older cases. Detective Rachel Kim from Chicago provided crucial information about Jennifer Walsh's disappearance. She vanished during a school field trip, massive search effort, FBI involvement. The assumption was abduction from the parking area. "We never found any evidence she died on zoo grounds." Dr. Whitmore worked there at the time. He was their senior veterinarian, actually participated in the search efforts, just like with your Emily Brennan case. The pattern was becoming clear. Dr. Whitmore gained employment at major zoos, used his position to access and abduct children, then participated in the search efforts to deflect suspicion while monitoring the investigation. St. Paul detective Miguel Santos had similar information about Kevin Morrison. Kid disappeared during a family visit to Como Zoo. Dr. Whitmore had just started consulting there. He offered to help coordinate animal-related aspects of the search. Martinez realized they were dealing with one of the most calculating serial killers she'd ever encountered. Dr. Whitmore's method was to establish himself as a helpful, concerned community member while secretly being the perpetrator. Tuesday morning, she returned to interview Dr. Whitmore with his lawyer present. "Doctor, we've identified DNA evidence connecting you to the disappearances of Jennifer Walsh and Kevin Morrison. Would you like to explain that?" Sterling interrupted. "My client has no comment." Martinez placed crime scene photos on the table. "Jennifer Walsh disappeared from Lincoln Park Zoo in 1987. You worked there. Kevin Morrison vanished from Como Zoo in 1992. You consulted there. Emily Brennan disappeared from Riverside Zoo in 1994. You worked there. That's quite a coincidence." Dr. Whitmore stared at the photos but remained silent. "We've analyzed your work history, Doctor. Everywhere you've been employed, children have disappeared from zoo properties. Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, Minneapolis. How many children did you kill?" Sterling placed his hand on his client's arm. "Don't answer that." Martinez leaned forward. "Dr. Whitmore, we found Emily Brennan's hair ribbon in your house. We found surgical evidence on her remains consistent with veterinary tools. We found your false logs showing you lied about your activities the day she disappeared. We have witnesses placing you with Emily minutes before she vanished." Dr. Whitmore's composure finally broke. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His breathing became rapid. "The children came to me," he whispered. Sterling immediately objected. "Don't say another word." But Dr. Whitmore continued. "They were drawn to me because I cared about animals. They trusted me. What did you do to Emily Brennan?" "I showed her the real work of a veterinarian. The anatomy, the procedures. She was very curious about how bodies work." Martinez felt nauseated but pressed on. "You tortured and killed a 7-year-old girl. I taught her about animal biology. She participated in her own education." The clinical way he described his crimes revealed the depth of his psychological dysfunction. To Dr. Whitmore, Emily and the other children weren't human beings. They were specimens for his twisted experiments. Sterling ended the interview, but the damage was done. Dr. Whitmore had essentially confessed to torturing Emily Brennan under the guise of education. That afternoon, Martinez received more lab results. Soil samples from Dr. Whitmore's backyard contained bone fragments from at least 3 different individuals. The backyard was now considered an additional crime scene. The investigation was expanding rapidly. The FBI was taking over coordination of the multi-state aspects. Dr. Whitmore's house would be excavated completely. Martinez called Linda Brennan to update her on the confession. "He called it education," Linda said through tears. "He tortured our baby and called it education. Mrs. Brennan, this is going to get worse before it gets better. The media attention, the trial details. Are you prepared for that? We've been living in hell for 11 years. At least now we know why." Martinez understood. For the Brennan family, the worst part had been not knowing. Now they faced the horrific details of Emily's death. But they also had answers. Dr. Whitmore was formally charged with first-degree murder in Emily Brennan's death. Additional charges would follow as the other cases developed. The monster who had hidden behind a respectable profession for decades was finally exposed. Unearthing the truth. The excavation of Dr. Whitmore's backyard began Wednesday morning with a full forensic team. Detective Martinez watched as cadaver dogs immediately alerted to 3 separate locations in the carefully maintained garden. Dr. Amanda Torres supervised the dig sites, while FBI agent Lisa Parker coordinated the multi-jurisdictional investigation. The property had been Dr. Whitmore's residence since 1989, giving him 16 years to dispose of evidence. The first remains emerged from beneath what had been a rose garden. Small bones, obviously a child. The second site, under an ornamental fountain, yielded similar findings. The third site produced clothing fragments and personal items. "Detective Martinez," Dr. Torres called out, "look at this." She was examining a small skull from the rose garden site. Cause of death appears to be blunt force trauma, but there are also precise cuts on the neck vertebrae, consistent with surgical procedures. The forensic evidence was painting a horrific picture. Dr. Whitmore hadn't just killed these children, he had experimented on them, using his veterinary skills to prolong their suffering while satisfying his twisted curiosity about anatomy. Agent Parker received identification results from the FBI laboratory. The remains match DNA profiles for Jennifer Walsh and Kevin Morrison. The third set is still being processed, but we believe it's a child who disappeared from Milwaukee in 1990. Martinez felt overwhelmed by the scope of Dr. Whitmore's crimes. 3 confirmed victims buried in his yard, Emily Brennan buried at the zoo, and potentially more victims yet to be discovered. That afternoon, she interviewed Dr. Patricia Chen from Lincoln Park Zoo again, this time with specific questions about Dr. Whitmore's access to surgical facilities. Jonathan had complete access to our veterinary surgical suite, Dr. Chen confirmed. He often worked late, sometimes overnight when we had sick animals. No one supervised him during those hours. Did you ever notice anything unusual about his late-night work? He was very secretive about his research projects. He claimed to be working on surgical techniques for exotic animals. We thought it showed dedication. Martinez realized that Dr. Whitmore had been using zoo veterinary facilities to torture and kill children, then disposing of their bodies on his own property or on zoo grounds. The psychological profile developed by FBI behavioral analysts revealed a methodical predator who combined pedophilia with a fascination for surgical procedures. His veterinary training had provided both opportunity and method for his crimes. Dr. Whitmore's lawyer, Richard Sterling, requested a meeting with prosecutors to discuss a potential plea agreement. My client is prepared to provide information about additional victims in exchange for life imprisonment instead of the death penalty. Prosecutor David Chen was reluctant to negotiate. He's already confessed to torturing and killing at least 4 children. Why would we make any deal? Because there are more victims. Families deserve to know what happened to their children. Agent Parker supported the negotiation. We have evidence suggesting at least 8 possible victims across 4 states. Getting their locations could provide closure for multiple families. Martinez participated in the negotiation meeting with Dr. Whitmore and his attorney. Doctor, you killed Jennifer Walsh in 1987. Where did you dispose of her body? Dr. Whitmore consulted notes he'd prepared. She's buried in Lincoln Park Zoo, behind the old primate facility. Depth of approximately 6 feet. Kevin Morrison? Como Zoo, St. Paul, near the seal exhibit, under what is now the children's playground. Martinez felt sick thinking about children playing above Kevin Morrison's grave for 13 years. How many other victims? Dr. Whitmore produced a handwritten list. 8 names, dates, and locations spanning from 1985 to 2003. Dr. Whitmore, Emily Brennan disappeared in 1994, but your last victim was 2003. Why did you stop? I retired from active zoo work. The opportunities became limited. His clinical description of child murder as opportunities demonstrated complete lack of remorse or human empathy. Agent Parker verified the names against missing persons databases. All 8 children had disappeared from areas where Dr. Whitmore had worked or consulted. The plea agreement was finalized. Dr. Whitmore would receive life imprisonment without possibility of parole, in exchange for providing detailed information about all victim locations and methods. That evening, Martinez called the families of the confirmed victims to inform them about the plea agreement and recovery efforts. Linda Brennan's response was typical. I want him to die for what he did to Emily. But if this helps other families find their children, I can accept it. The investigation had revealed one of the most prolific child killers in Midwest history. Dr. Whitmore had used his position of trust and professional reputation to hunt children for 18 years, leaving devastation across 4 states. Recovery efforts for the additional victims would begin immediately, finally giving families the answers they'd waited decades to receive. The final hunt agent, Parker coordinated recovery teams across 4 states to simultaneously excavate the burial sites Dr. Whitmore had revealed. The logistics were complex. Some locations had been developed since the murders, requiring careful urban excavation. Detective Martinez joined the team at Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, where Jennifer Walsh had been buried 18 years earlier. The area behind the old primate facility was now part of a parking lot. Using ground-penetrating radar, they located the burial site beneath 6 inches of asphalt and concrete. The excavation required heavy machinery and drew significant media attention. Dr. Whitmore had been accurate about the location. Jennifer Walsh's remains were found exactly where he indicated, along with personal items that matched her family's description of what she wore the day she disappeared. Jennifer's father, Michael Walsh, now 54, watched the excavation from behind police barriers. 18 years I've wondered what happened to my little girl. That monster worked right there where she's buried. He participated in searching for her, knowing she was under his feet. Similar scenes played out at Como Zoo in St. Paul, where Kevin Morrison's remains were recovered from beneath the children's playground. His mother, Patricia Morrison, collapsed when investigators confirmed the identification. The most disturbing discovery came from Milwaukee's Zoological Gardens, where Dr. Whitmore had worked as a consultant in 1990. 8-year-old Amanda Rodriguez had been buried in the zoo's compost facility, her remains mixed with organic waste. Amanda's brother, Carlos Rodriguez, now 32, confronted Martinez about the delay in solving his sister's case. Why did it take 15 years to catch this guy? How many other kids would be alive if someone had connected these disappearances sooner? Martinez couldn't provide a satisfactory answer. The jurisdictional boundaries, the assumption that children were abducted from zoo parking lots rather than killed on the grounds, and Dr. Whitmore's careful manipulation of his public image had all contributed to his ability to kill undetected. The psychological evaluation of Dr. Whitmore revealed the methodical planning behind his crimes. FBI behavioral analyst Dr. Rebecca Thompson interviewed him extensively to understand his victim selection and methods. He chose children who showed particular interest in animals or veterinary work, Dr. Thompson explained to Martinez. He would engage them in conversations about becoming veterinarians, then offer to show them special areas or procedures not available to regular visitors. How did he control them once he got them alone? He used veterinary sedatives designed for small animals. The children would become compliant within minutes. He then had hours to transport them to his killing location and conduct his experiments. The experiments were the most horrific aspect of Dr. Whitmore's crimes. He treated the children like laboratory animals, performing surgical procedures while they were conscious but sedated, documenting their responses to pain and fear. His house contained detailed notebooks describing each victim's reactions to various procedures. The notebooks were written in clinical terminology, as if he were conducting legitimate research rather than torturing children. Martinez interviewed Thomas Muller, the elephant keeper, about Dr. Whitmore's access to veterinary supplies. He ordered supplies constantly, Muller recalled. Sedatives, surgical instruments, monitoring equipment. We assumed it was for his research projects with the larger animals. Did anyone ever question the quantities? No. He was the senior veterinarian. If he said he needed something for animal care, we ordered it. The investigation revealed that Dr. Whitmore had been systematically stealing veterinary supplies for use in his crimes. Zoo administrators had never monitored his orders or inventory usage. By Friday, all 8 burial sites had been excavated and victims identified. The scope of Dr. Whitmore's crimes shocked even experienced investigators. Agent Parker compiled the final statistics. 12 confirmed victims ranging in age from 6 to 9 years old, spanning 18 years across 4 states. All had been killed using similar methods. All had been buried in locations where Dr. Whitmore had regular access. The case would become a textbook study in how institutional trust and professional reputation could shield a predator from detection. Dr. Whitmore's crimes had been possible because no one questioned the activities of a respected veterinarian. Martinez prepared for the most difficult part of her job, testifying at Dr. Whitmore's sentencing hearing, where she would have to describe in detail what he had done to Emily Brennan and the other children. The families deserved justice, and the public deserved to understand how such monstrous crimes could occur undetected for so long. Facing justice. The sentencing hearing for Dr. Jonathan Whitmore began on Monday, October 3, 2005, in Hennepin County District Court. Judge Patricia Williams presided over proceedings that would determine whether the monster would spend life in prison or face execution for his crimes against 12 children. Detective Martinez was the first witness called by prosecutor David Chen. She testified for 3 hours, methodically presenting the evidence that connected Dr. Whitmore to each victim. The defendant used his position as a respected veterinarian to gain access to children at multiple zoo facilities across 4 states, Martinez testified. He exploited their natural curiosity about animals and veterinary work to lure them to isolated areas where he could sedate and abduct them. Defense attorney Richard Sterling's strategy was to portray his client as mentally ill rather than evil, hoping to avoid the death penalty. Dr. Whitmore suffers from severe psychological disorders that compelled him to commit these acts, Sterling argued. He requires treatment, not execution. Dr. Rebecca Thompson, the FBI behavioral analyst, testified about Dr. Whitmore's psychological profile. The defendant demonstrates classic characteristics of an organized serial killer with pedophilic tendencies. His crimes were carefully planned and executed with methodical precision. He showed no remorse and viewed his victims as objects for experimentation rather than human beings. The most powerful testimony came from the families of the victims. Linda Brennan spoke about Emily's love of animals and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian someday. Emily trusted Dr. Whitmore because he worked with animals. She thought he was helping her learn about her future career. Instead, he used that trust to torture and kill her. No parent should ever have to endure what our family has suffered. Michael Walsh described the 18 years of wondering what had happened to Jennifer. Every day for 18 years, I wondered if my daughter was alive somewhere, if she was being hurt, if she was trying to come home. The not knowing was torture, but finding out what actually happened to her was worse. Patricia Morrison, Kevin's mother, confronted Dr. Whitmore directly during her victim impact statement. You sat in that courtroom during Kevin's custody hearing 6 months after you killed him. You watched me fight for custody of a child you had already murdered. You knew I was never going to see my son again, and you said nothing. Dr. Whitmore showed no emotion during any of the testimony. He sat motionless at the defense table, occasionally making notes but never looking at the families or crime scene photographs. On Wednesday, Prosecutor Chen presented the detailed forensic evidence. Dr. Amanda Torres testified about the surgical procedures Dr. Whitmore had performed on living children. The bone markings indicate that surgical incisions were made while the victims were alive. The defendant used professional veterinary instruments to systematically torture these children over extended periods. The courtroom fell silent as Dr. Torres described the specific injuries found on each victim. Several family members left the courtroom unable to listen to the horrific details. Agent Parker testified about the scope of the investigation and the likelihood of additional undiscovered victims. Dr. Whitmore worked at or consulted with over 20 zoo facilities during his career. We've identified 12 confirmed victims, but there may be others we haven't discovered yet. Judge Williams questioned Dr. Whitmore directly about his crimes, asking if he wanted to make a statement before sentencing. Your Honor, Dr. Whitmore said, speaking publicly for the first time during the proceedings, I was conducting important research into pain responses and anatomical structures in developing mammals. The scientific value of my work was significant. The courtroom erupted. Family members shouted in anger. Judge Williams demanded order and had Dr. Whitmore's microphone turned off. The defendant's statement demonstrates complete lack of remorse and continuing danger to society, she announced. His characterization of child torture as research shows he remains a threat to any child he might encounter. Sterling attempted to salvage the situation by arguing that his client's statement proved his mental illness. Dr. Whitmore's complete disconnection from reality demonstrates that he requires psychiatric treatment rather than punishment. But the damage was done. Dr. Whitmore's own words had sealed his fate. On Friday, October 7, 2005, Judge Williams announced the sentence. Dr. Jonathan Whitmore, you have been convicted of 12 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of children who trusted you. Your crimes represent the most heinous betrayal of professional responsibility this court has ever encountered. You used your position as a veterinarian to gain access to innocent children, then subjected them to prolonged torture before killing them. Your complete lack of remorse and your characterization of child murder as research demonstrates that you remain an extreme danger to society. I hereby sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on each count. Sentences to run consecutively. You will never be eligible for release. Dr. Whitmore showed no reaction to the sentence. He was led from the courtroom in shackles to begin serving 12 consecutive life sentences. Outside the courthouse, Detective Martinez spoke to the gathered media. This case demonstrates the importance of questioning authority and investigating thoroughly when children disappear. Dr. Whitmore's crimes were possible because people trusted his professional reputation without looking deeper into his activities. The families of the victims expressed mixed emotions about the resolution. Justice had been served, but it could never restore their lost children. Uncovering the full scope. 3 weeks after Dr. Whitmore's sentencing, Detective Martinez received a call from Agent Parker that would reopen the investigation in ways she hadn't anticipated. Sarah, we've been analyzing Dr. Whitmore's financial records and found some disturbing patterns. He was paying significant amounts to individuals across multiple states. We think he had accomplices. Martinez felt her stomach drop. The investigation had focused on Dr. Whitmore as a lone predator, but the financial evidence suggested a broader network. What kind of payments? Monthly transfers to 6 different people over the past 15 years, amounts ranging from $500 to $2,000 per month, always in cash, always through intermediaries. In a year, the FBI had traced the payments to individuals who worked at various zoo facilities where Dr. Whitmore had access. These weren't random payments. They followed a clear pattern of hush money. Agent Parker had identified the first accomplice, David Kowalski, a maintenance supervisor at Lincoln Park Zoo during Dr. Whitmore's tenure there. Kowalski had received monthly payments from 1985 to 1995. Chicago police detective Rachel Kim arrested Kowalski at his home in Cicero. During interrogation, he broke down within 2 hours. Dr. Whitmore said he was conducting research. He paid me to keep quiet about children visiting his laboratory after hours. You knew children were being hurt? I suspected something wasn't right, but Dr. Whitmore was respected, important. He said the children were volunteers for educational programs. How many children did you see? Over 10 years, maybe 15 or 20. They would arrive with Dr. Whitmore in the evening, go to his laboratory, and leave later that night. Detective Kim pressed for more details. Did you ever see the same child twice? No. It was always different children. Dr. Whitmore said they were special students interested in veterinary careers. Kowalski's testimony revealed that Dr. Whitmore had been bringing potential victims to zoo facilities after hours for preliminary assessment and grooming. The children who survived these encounters were likely traumatized but hadn't been killed. This meant there were additional victims, children who had been abused but not murdered, who might still be alive and could provide testimony about Dr. Whitmore's methods. Agent Parker coordinated with police departments in all cities where Dr. Whitmore had worked to identify and interview potential survivors. The second accomplice was Maria Santos, a security guard at Milwaukee's Zoological Gardens. She had received payments from 1988 to 1992 and admitted to falsifying security logs to hide Dr. Whitmore's after-hours access. He told me he was working on important medical research that could help sick animals, Santos testified. The money helped support my family. I thought I was helping science. Detective Martinez interviewed Janet Reeves, the zoo supervisor at Riverside Zoo, about potential accomplices there. We need to know who might have helped Dr. Whitmore gain after-hours access to facilities between 1989 and 2004. Janet reviewed employment records and security protocols. Frank Williams, our head of maintenance, would have had master keys. But Frank's been here 30 years. I can't believe he would be involved in something like this. Martinez interviewed Williams at his home that evening. The 62-year-old maintenance chief initially denied any involvement. Dr. Whitmore was a respected professional. If he needed after-hours access for animal emergencies, I provided it. Frank, Dr. Whitmore has admitted to killing children. We have evidence he used zoo facilities for these crimes. Did you ever see anything suspicious? Williams broke down crying. He said they were special veterinary students, gifted children who showed exceptional interest in animal medicine. He paid me to arrange private educational sessions. How many children? 8 or 10 over the years he worked here. They seemed excited about learning. I thought I was helping their education. The investigation had uncovered a network of accomplices who enabled Dr. Whitmore's crimes through willful ignorance and financial incentives. These individuals had facilitated access to facilities and victims while choosing to ignore obvious warning signs. Agent Parker coordinated interviews with potential survivors identified through the accomplice testimonies. The interviews revealed a pattern of grooming and abuse that preceded the murders. Sarah Mitchell, now 28, had been one of Dr. Whitmore's special students at Lincoln Park Zoo in 1987, when she was 8 years old. He told me I had special potential to become a veterinarian. The private lessons started normally. He showed me animal anatomy, basic medical procedures, but then he began touching me inappropriately and making me participate in examinations of sedated animals. Why didn't you report it? He said it was normal veterinary training. He was a doctor. I trusted him. And he threatened that if I told anyone, I would never be allowed to work with animals. Sarah's testimony revealed Dr. Whitmore's method of selecting victims. He would identify children with strong interests in animals, groom them through special educational opportunities, then gradually escalate to abuse and, in some cases, murder. The children who survived were those who showed resistance or whose parents became suspicious. The children who were murdered were likely those who threatened to expose him or who he viewed as ideal subjects for his twisted experiments. By December 2005, the investigation had identified 6 accomplices and 12 additional survivors across 4 states. The survivors ranged in age from 19 to 35, all carrying psychological scars from their encounters with Dr. Whitmore. The accomplices were charged with various crimes, including conspiracy, child endangerment, and accessory to murder. Their testimonies would be crucial in understanding the full scope of Dr. Whitmore's operation and identifying any additional victims. Detective Martinez realized that what had started as the search for one missing girl had uncovered one of the most sophisticated child predator networks in American criminal history. Justice and healing. By January 2006, the investigation into Dr. Jonathan Whitmore's crimes had expanded to include 42 potential victims across 6 states. The FBI established a task force dedicated to identifying and supporting survivors while prosecuting accomplices who had enabled his network. Detective Martinez was promoted to lead the Minneapolis Police Department's new Child Predator Task Force, created in direct response to the failures that had allowed Dr. Whitmore to operate undetected for nearly 2 decades. The accomplices faced trial throughout 2006. David Kowalski received 8 years for conspiracy and child endangerment. Maria Santos received 6 years for similar charges. Frank Williams, due to his cooperation and genuine remorse, received 4 years with eligibility for early parole. Each trial revealed more details about Dr. Whitmore's methodical approach to victim selection and grooming. He had maintained detailed records of potential victims, rating their suitability for abuse and murder based on factors like family stability, natural curiosity, and likelihood to trust authority figures. Linda and Robert Brennan established the Emily Brennan Foundation for Child Safety, focusing on education about predator identification and institutional accountability. Their first initiative required background checks and supervision protocols for all zoo employees who interact with children. Emily loved animals so much, Linda said during the foundation's launch. We want her legacy to be protection for other children who share that love. The foundation worked with zoos nationwide to implement new safety protocols. No employee could be alone with children outside of public areas. All after-hours access required documented justification and supervision. Educational programs for children required multiple staff members present at all times. Dr. Patricia Chen, now retired from Lincoln Park Zoo, became an advocate for institutional reform in educational and recreational facilities. We trusted Dr. Whitmore because of his credentials and reputation. But credentials don't guarantee character. Institutions must implement systems that protect children even from respected employees. The psychological support for survivors became a crucial component of the case's resolution. Dr. Rebecca Thompson coordinated therapy services for the 12 survivors who had been identified and were willing to participate in treatment. Sarah Mitchell, the survivor from Chicago, became a spokesperson for other victims. Dr. Whitmore stole our childhoods and our ability to trust adults who work with children. But we survived, and our voices can help prevent other children from experiencing what we endured. The forensic examination of Dr. Whitmore's property and records continued through 2006, revealing the full scope of his documentation. He had maintained detailed files on over 200 children he had encountered through various zoo programs, rating their potential as victims. Most chilling were his notes about children who had escaped assessment, children whose parents had intervened, or who had shown resistance to his grooming attempts. These notes revealed how close dozens of additional children had come to becoming victims. Agent Parker compiled the final case statistics in December 2006. 12 confirmed murder victims, 24 survivors of sexual abuse, 6 accomplices convicted, and institutional reforms implemented at 43 zoo facilities across 8 states. Dr. Whitmore, serving his consecutive life sentences at Minnesota Correctional Facility Oak Park Heights, never provided additional information beyond his plea agreement. He died in prison in 2018 from natural causes, taking whatever remaining secrets he had to his grave. The Riverside Zoo completely renovated the area where Emily Brennan's remains were discovered. In 2007, they dedicated a children's memorial garden in her honor, with plaques remembering all 12 of Dr. Whitmore's confirmed victims. Marcus Patterson, the groundskeeper who discovered Emily's remains, became the memorial garden's primary caretaker until his retirement in 2015. Finding Emily was the worst day of my career, he reflected. But it led to justice for her and those other children. That has to count for something. Detective Martinez continued leading child safety initiatives until her retirement in 2020. Her final case report on the Whitmore investigation became required reading at police academies nationwide. The most important lesson from this case is that predators often hide behind respected positions and institutions, she wrote. Our job as investigators is to look beyond reputation and credentials to examine actual behavior and evidence. Shatos, the Emily Brennan Foundation continues its work today, having trained over 10,000 youth program staff members in predator identification and prevention. Linda Brennan, now 71, remains actively involved in child safety advocacy. Emily will always be our 7-year-old girl who loved animals and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian, Linda said during the Foundation's 2024 annual dinner. But her death exposed a monster and led to changes that have protected thousands of other children. That's how we find meaning in our loss. Robert Brennan died in 2019, having lived to see justice for Emily and meaningful reforms implemented across the country. His last words to Linda were about their daughter. Emily's safe now, and other children are safer because of what happened to her. The case of Dr. Jonathan Whitmore remains one of the most significant child predator investigations in American history, not just for the scope of his crimes, but for the institutional changes it prompted and the survivors it helped identify and heal. The Memorial Garden at Riverside Zoo serves as a permanent reminder that vigilance, courage, and persistence can eventually bring even the most hidden monsters to justice, providing closure for families and protection for future generations of children.